Our partnership was revived. Mike's mom had a spare room in the basement that no one used. We cleaned it out and began pulling hundreds of comic books in that room. Soon our comic book library was open to the public. We hired Mike's younger sister, who loves to study, to be head librarian. She charged each child 10 cents admission to the library, which was open from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. every day after school. The children of the neighborhood could read as many comics as they could in 2 hours. It was a bargain for them since a comic cost 10 cents each, and they could read 5 or 6 in 2 hours. Mike's sisters would check the kids as they left to make sure they weren't borrowing any comic book. She also kept the book, logging in how many kids showed up each day, how they were, who they were, and any comments they might have. Mike and I averaged 9.5 per dollar per week over month period. We paid his sister $1 a week and allowed her to read the comic for free, which she rarely did since she was always studying. Mike and Mike and F kept our agreement by working in the store every Saturday and collecting all the comic book from the different stores. We kept our agreement to the distributor by not selling any comic book. We burned them once they got too tattered. We tried opening a branch office, but we could never quite find someone as dedicated as Mike's sister we could trust. At an early age, we found out how hard it was to find good stuff. 3 months after the library first opened, a fight broke out in the room. Some bullies from another neighborhood pushed their way in and started it. Mike's dad suggested we shut down the business, so our comic book business shut down and we stopped working on Saturday at the convenience store anyways. Rich dad was excited because we had new things we wanted to teach us. He was happy because we had learned our first lesson so well. We had learned to have money work for us, but not getting paid for our work at the store. We were forced to use our imagination to identify an opportunity to make money. But starting our own business, the comic book library, we were in control of our own finance, not dependent on an employer. The best part was that our business generated money for us even when we weren't physically there. Our money worked for us instead of paying us money. Rich Dad had given us so much more. Chapter 3, Lesson 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy. In 1990, my best friend Mike took over his father empire and is in fact doing better job than his dad did. We see each other once or twice a year on the golf course. He and his wife are wealthier than you could imagine. Rich Dad Empire is in great hands, and Mike is now grooming his son to take his place as his dad had groomed us. In 1994, I retired at the age of 47 and my wife Kim was 37. Retirement does not mean not working. To my wife and me, it means that bearing unforeseen cataclysmic changes, we can work or not work, and our wealth grows automatically. Staying ahead of inflation, I guess it means freedom. The assets are large enough to grow by themselves. It's like planting a tree, you water it for years, and then one day it doesn't need you anymore. Its roots have gone down deep enough Then the tree provides shade for your enjoyment. Mike choose to run the empire and I choose to retire. Whenever I speak to group of people, they often ask what I would recommend or what could they do. How do they get started? Is there a good book I would recommend? Why should they do to prepare their children? What is the secret to success? How do I make millions? I am always reminded of this article I was once given. It goes as follow. The richest businessman. In 1923, a group of our greatest leaders and richest businessmen held a meeting at the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago. Among them were Charles Schwab, head of the largest independent steel company, Samuel Instill, president of the world's largest utility, Howard Hobson, head of the largest gas company, Ever Kruger, president of the International Match Corporation, one of the world's largest company at that time, Leon Frazier, president of the Bank of International Settlement, Richard Whitney, president of the New York Stock Exchange, Arthur Cotton and Jesse Livermore, two of the biggest stock speculators, and Albert Fall, a member of President Harding cabinet. 25 years later, nine of them, those listed above, ended as follow. Swab died penniless after living for 5 years on borrowed money. Still died broke living in a foreign land. Kruger and Cotton also died broke. Hobson went insane. Whitney and Albert Fall were just released from prison. Fraser and Livermore committed suicide. I doubt if anyone can say what really happened to these men. If you look at the date 1923, it was just before the 1929 market crash and the Great Depression, which I suspect had a great impact on these men in their life. The point is this: today we live in times of greater and faster change than these men did. I suspect there will be many booms and busts in the next 25 years that will parallel the ups and downs these men face. I am concerned that too many years that too many people are focused too much on money and not their greatest wealth, which is their education. If people are prepared to be flexible, keep and open minded and learn, they will grow richer. And if people are prepared and richer through the changes, if they think money will solve problems, I am afraid those people will have a rough ride. Intelligence solve problems and produce money. Money without financial intelligence is money soon gone. Most people fail to realize that in life it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. You have all heard stories of lottery winners who are poor, then suddenly rich, then poor again. They win millions and are soon back to where they started. Are stories of professional athletes who, at the age of 24, are earning millions of dollars a year and are sleeping under a bridge by age 34 in the paper. This morning, as I write this, there is a story of a young basketball player who a year ago had millions. Today, he claimed his friends, attorney, and accountant took his money, and now he work at a car wash for minimum wage. He is only 29. He was fired from the car wash because he refused to take off his championship ring as he was wiping off the car. So his story made the newspaper. He is appealing his termination, claiming hardship and discrimination, and that the ring is all he has left. He claims that if you take that away, he'll crumble. In 1997, I know so many people who are becoming instant millionaire. It's the roaring 20s. one more time. And while I'm glad people have been getting richer and richer, I only caution that in the long run, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep and how many generations you keep it. So when people ask where do I get started or tell me how to get rich quick, they often are generally disappointed with my answer. I simply say to them what my rich dad said back to me when I was a little kid. If you want to be rich, you need to be financial literate. That idea was drummed into my head every time we were together. As I said, my educated dad stressed the importance of reading books, while my rich dad stressed the need to master financial literacy. If you are going to build the Empire State Building, the first thing you need to do is dig a deep hole and pour a strong foundation. If you are going to build a home in the sub suburb, all you need to do is pour a 6-inch slab of concrete. Most people in their diff to get rich and trying to build an Empire State Building on a 6-inch slab. Our school system, having been created in the agrarian age, still believes in homes with no foundation. Dirt floors are still the rate, so kids graduate from schools with virtually no financial foundation when they sleep less and deep in debt in suburbia, living the American dream. They decided that the answer to their financial problem is to find a way to get rich quick. Construction on the skyscraper begins, it goes up quickly, and soon, instead of the Empire State Building, we have the Learning Tower of suburbia. The sleepless night returns. As for Mike, as for Mike and me in our adults' year, both of our choices were possible because we were taught to pour a strong financial foundation when we were just kids. Now accounting is possible, the most boring subject in the world. It almost could be the most confusing. But if you want to be rich long term, it could be the most important subject. The question is, how do you take a boring and confusing subject and teach it to kids? The answer is make it simple. Teach it first in pictures. My rich dad poured a strong financial foundation for Mike and me since we were just kids. He created a simple way to teach us. For years, he only drew pictures and used words. Mike and I understand the simple drawing and jargon, the movement of money, and then in later years, Rich Dad begins adding numbers. Today, Mike has gone on to master much more complex and sophisticated accounting analysis because had to. He has $1 billion empire to run. I am not as sophisticated because my empire is smaller, yet we come from the small same simple foundation. The following pages I offer to you the same simple line drawing mics that created for us. Through simple loose drawing help guide two little boys in building great sums of wealth on a solid and deep foundation. Rule 1. You must know the difference between an asset and liability and buy assets if you want to be rich. This is all you need to know. It is rule number one. It is the only rule. This may sound absurdly simple, but most people have no idea how profound this rule is. Most people struggle financially because they do not know the difference between an asset and a liability. Rich people acquire assets, the poor and middle class acquire liabilities, but they think they are assets. When Rich Dad explained this to Mike and me, we thought he was kidding. Here we were, nearly teenagers, and waiting for the secret to get rich, and this was his answer. It was so simple that we had to stop for a long time to think about it. What is an asset? Asked Mike. Don't worry right now, said Rich Dad. Just let Let the idea sink in. If you can comprehend the simplicity, your life will have a plan and be financial easy. It is simple, that is why the idea is miss. You mean all we need to know is what an asset is, acquire them, and we'll be rich? I asked. Rich Dad nodded his head. It's that simple. If it's that simple, how come everyone is not rich? I asked. Rich Dad smiled because people do not know the difference between an asset and a liability. I remember asking how could adults be so silly if it is that simple, if it is that important, why would everyone not want to find out? It took our it took our rich dad only a few minutes to explain what assets and liabilities were. As an adult, I have difficulty explaining it to other adults. Why? Because adults are smarter in most cases. The simplicity of the idea escape most adults because they have been educated differently. They have been educated by other educated professionals such as bankers, accountants, real estate agents, financial planners, and so forth. The difficulty comes in asking adults to unlearn and become children again. An intelligent adult often feels it is demeaning to pay attention to simplistic definition. Rich dad believe in the KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. So he kept it simple for two young boys, and that made the financial foundation strong. So what caused the confusion, or how could something so simple be so screwed up? Why? Would someone buy an asset that was really a liability? The answer is found in basic education. We focus on the word literacy and not financial literacy. What defines something to be an asset or something to be a liability are not words. In fact, if you really want to confuse, look up the words asset and liability in the dictionary. I know the definition may sound good to a trained accountant, but for the average person, it makes no sense. But we adults are often too proud to admit that something does not make sense. As young boy Rich Dad said, what defines an asset is not words but numbers. And if you cannot read the numbers, you cannot tell an asset from a hole in the ground. In accounting, Rich Dad would say it's not the number, but what the numbers are telling you. It's just like words. It's not the words, but the story the words are telling you. Many people read but do not understand much. It's called reading comprehensions. And we all have different abilities when it comes to reading comprehensions. For example, I recently bought a new VCR. It came with an instruction book that explained how to program the VCR. All I wanted to do was record my favorite TV show on Friday night. I nearly went crazy trying to read the manual. Nothing in my world is more complex than learning how to program my VCR. I could read the words, but I understand nothing. I get an A for recognizing the words, I get an F for comprehensions. And so it is with financial statement for most people. If you want to be rich, you got to read and understand numbers. If I heard that once, I heard it 1,000 times from my rich dad. And I also heard the rich acquire assets and the poor and the middle class acquire liabilities. Here is how to tell the difference between an asset and a liability. Most accountant and financial professionals do not do net. Most accountant and financial professionals do not agree with the definition, do not agree with the definitions, but these simple drawing were the start of a strong financial foundation for two young boys. To teach teens boys rich that kept everything simple, using as many pictures as possible, as few words as possible, and no numbers for years. This is the cash flow pattern of an asset. The above box is an income statement, often called a profit and loss statement. It measures income and expenses, money in and money out. The bottom diagram is the balance sheet. It is called that because it is supposed to balance assets against liabilities. Many financial novices don't know the relationship between the income statement and the balance sheet. The that relationship is vital to understand. The primary cause of financial struggle is simply not knowing the difference between an asset and the liability. The cause of the confusion is found in the definition of the two words. If you want a lesson in confusion, simply look up the word asset and liability in the dictionary. Now, it may make sense to train accountant, but to the average person, it may as well be written in Mandarin. You read the word in the definition, but true comprehension is difficult. So, as I said earlier, my rich dad simply told two young boys, asset put money in your pocket. Nice, simple, and usable. This is cash flow pattern of a liability, income, expense. Now that assets are liabilities, now that assets and liabilities have been defined through pictures, it may be easier to understand my definition in words. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. This is really all you need to know if you want to be rich. Simply spend your life buying assets. If you want to be poor or middle class, spend your life buying liabilities. It's not knowing the difference that cause most of the financial struggle in the real world. Literacy, both in words and numbers, is the foundation of financial struggle. If people are having difficulty financially, there is something that they cannot read either in numbers or words. Something is misunderstand. The rich are richer because they are more literate in different areas than people who struggle financially. So if you want to be rich and maintain your wealth, it's important to be financial literate in words as well as numbers. The arrows in the diagram represent the flow of cash or cash flow. Numbers alone really mean little, just as words alone means little. It's the story that counts in financial reporting. Reading numbers is looking for the plot, the story of where the cash is flowing. In 80% of most families, the financial story is a story of working hard in an effort to get ahead, not because they don't make money, but because they spend their life buying liability instead of asset. For instance, this is the cash flow pattern of a poor person or a young person still at home. Job provides income, expenses, tax, food, rent, clothes, fund, transportation, assets none, liabilities none. This is the cash flow pattern of the person in the middle class. Job provides income, expenses, tax, food, mortgage, clothes, fund, transportation, assets none, liability, mortgage, consumer loans, credit cards. This is the cash flow pattern of the wealthy person. Assets, stock, bonds, notes, real estate, intellectual property, income, dividend, interest, rental income, royalties, liabilities, none. All of these diagrams were obviously oversimplified. Everyone has living expenses, the need for food, shelter, and clothing. The diagram shows the flow of cash through a poor, middle class, or wealthy person life. It is the cash flow that tells the story. It is the story of how a person handles their money, what they do after they get the money in their hand. The reason I started with the story of the richest man in America is to illustrate the flaw in the thinking of many people. The flaw is that money will solve all problems. This is why I cringe, cringe whenever I hear people ask me how to get rich quicker or where do they start. I often hear I am in debt so I need to make more money. But more money will often not solve the problem. In fact, it may actually accelerate the problem. Money often makes obvious our tragic human flaws. Money often puts a spotlight on what we do not know. This is why all too often a person who comes into sudden windfall of cash, let's say an inheritance, a pay raise, or lottery winning, soon returns to the same financial mess, if not worse than the mess they were in before they received the money. Money only accentuate the cash flow pattern running in your head. If your pattern is to spend everything you get, most likely an increase in cash will just result in an increase in spending. Thus, the saying, a fool and his money is one big party. I have said many times that we go to school to gain scholastic skills and professional skills, both important. We learn to make money with our professional skills in the 1960s. When I was in high school, if someone did well in school academically, almost immediately people assumed this bright student would go on to be a medical doctor. Often, no one asked the child if they wanted to be a doctor. It was assumed it was the profession with the promise of the greatest financial reward. Today, doctors are facing financial challenges I would not wish on my worst enemy. Insurance companies taking control of the business, manage healthcare, government intervention, and malpractice suits, to name a few. Today, kids want to be basketball star, golf golfer like Tiger Woods, computer nerds, movie star, rock star, beauty queen, or traders on Wall Street, simply because that is where the fame, money, and prestige is. That is the reason it is so hard to motivate kids in school today. They know that professional success is no longer solely linked to academic success as it once was. Because students leave the school without financial skills, millions of educated pupils pursue their profession successfully but later find themselves struggling financially. They work harder but they don't get ahead. What is missing from their education is not how to make money, but how to spend money, what to do after you make it. It's called financial aptitude. What you do with the money once you make it, how to keep people from taking it from you, how long you keep it, and how hard that money work for you. Most people cannot tell why they struggle financially because they don't understand cash flow. A person can be highly educated, professionally successful, and illiterate. These people often work harder than they need to because they learn how to work hard but not how to have their money work for them. The story of Bo, the quest for a financial dream, turns into a financial nightmare. The moving picture shows of hardworking Puel has a set pattern. Recently married, the happy, highly educated young couple move in together in one of their cramped rented apartment. Immediately they realize that they are saving money because two can live as cheaply as one. The problem is the apartment is cramped. They decided to save money to buy their dreams home so they can have kids. They now have two incomes and they begin to focus on their careers. Their income becomes to increase. As their incomes go up, their expenses go up as well. The number one expense for most people is taxes. Many people think it's income tax, but for most Americans, their highest tax is social security. As an employee, appears as if the Social Security tax combined with the Medicare tax rate is roughly 7.5%, but it's really 15% since the employer must match the Social Security amount. In essence, it is money the employer cannot pay you. On top of that, you still have to pay income tax on the amount deduct from your wages for social security tax income you never receive because it went directly to social security through withholding, then their liabilities go up. This is best demonstrated by going back to the young couple. As a result of their incomes going up, they decided to go out and buy the house of their dreams. Once in their house, they have new taxes called property tax. Then they buy a new car, new furniture, and new appliance to match their new house. All of sudden, they wake up and their liabilities column is full of mortgage debt and credit card debt. They are now trapped in the rat race. A child comes along, they work harder, the process repeat itself. More money and higher taxes, also called bracket creep. A credit card comes in the mail, they use it in maxes out. A loan company calls and say their greatest asset, their home, has appreciated in value. The company offers a bill consolidation loan because their credit is too good and tells them the intelligent things to do is clear of the highest interest consumer debt by paying off their credit card, and beside interest on their home is a tax deduction. They go for it and pay for those high interest credit cards. They breathe a sign of relief. Their credit cards are paid off. They have now folded their consumer debt into their home mortgage. Their payments go down because they extend their debt over 30 years. It is the smart thing to do. Their neighbor calls to invite them to go shopping. The Memorial Day sale is on. A chance to save some money. They say to themselves, I won't buy anything. I'll just go look, but just in case they find something, they tuck that clean credit card inside their wallet. I run into this young couples all the time. Their names change, but their financial dilemma is the same. They come to one of my talk to hear what I have to say. They ask me, can you tell us how to make more money? Their spending habits have caused them to seek more income. They don't even know that the trouble is really how they choose to spend the money they do have, and that is the real cause of their financial struggle. It is caused by financial literacy and not understanding the difference between an asset and liability. More money seldom solves someone money problem. Intelligence solve problem. There is saying a friend of mine says over and over to people in debt, if you find you have dug yourself into a hole, stop digging. As a child, my dad often told us that the Japanese were aware of three powers: the power of sword, the jewel, and the mirror. The sword symbolized the power of weapons. American has spent trillions of dollars on weapons, and because of this, is the supreme military presence in the world. The jewels symbolize the power of money. There is some degree of truth to the saying. Remember the golden rule: he who has the gold makes the rule. The mirror symbolizes the power of self knowledge. This self knowledge, according to Japanese legend, was the most treasure of the tree. The poor and middle class all too often allow the power of money to control them by simply getting up and working harder, falling to ask themselves if what they do makes sense. They shoot themselves in the foot as they leave for work every morning by not fully understand money. The vast majority of people allow the awesome power of money to control them. The power of money is used against them. If they use the power of the mirror, they would have asked themselves, does this make sense? All too often, instead of trusting their inner wisdom, that genius inside of them, most people go along with the crowd. They do things because everybody else does it. They confirm rather than question. Often they mindlessly repeat what they have been told. Ideas such as diversify or your home is an asset, your home is your biggest investment. You get a tax break for going into greater debt. Get a safe job. Don't make mistake. Don't take risk. It is said that the fear of public speaking is a fear greater than that for most people. According to psychiatrists, the fear of public speaking is caused by the fear of ostracism, the fear of standing out, the fear of criticism, the fear of ridicule, the fear of being an outcast, the fear of being different, prevent most people from seeking new ways to solve their problems. That is why my educated dad said the Japanese value the power of the mirror the most. For for it is only when we as human look into the mirror do we find truth. And the main reason that most people say play it safe is out of fear. That goes for anything, be it sport, relationship, career, and money. It is that same fear, the fear of altruism, that cause people to conform and not question commonly accepted opinions or popular trends. Your home is an asset, get a bill, consolidating loan, and get out of debt. Work harder, it is a promotion. Someday I'll be a vice president. Save money, when get a raise, I'll buy a bigger house. Mutual funds are safe. Trickle Me doll are out of stock, but I just happen to have one in bag that another customer has not come by the yet. Many great financial problems are caused by going along with the crowd and trying to keep up with the Genesis. Okay, occasionally, we all need to look in the mirror and be true to our inner wisdom rather than our fear. By the time Mike and I was 16 years old, we began to have problems in school. We were not bad kids. We just began to separate from the crowd. We worked for Mike's dad after school and on the weekend. Mike and I often spent hours after work just sitting at a table with his dad while he held meeting with his banker, attorney, accountant, broker, investor, manager, and employees. Here was a man who had left school at the age of 13, now directing instructions, ordering, and asking questions of educated people. They come at his back and call and cringe when he did not approve of them. Here was a man who had not gone along with the crowd. He was a man who did his own thinking and detested the words, "We have to do it this way because that's the way everyone else does it." He also hated the words can't. If you wanted him to do something, just say, "I don't think you can do it." Mike and I learned more sitting at his meeting than we did in all our years of school, college, included. Mike that was not a school educated, but he was financially educated and successful. As a result, he used to tell us over and over again, an intelligent person hires people who are more intelligent than they are. So Mike and I had the benefit of spending hours listening to, and in the process learning from, intelligent people.